Imagine a house built entirely on mirrors, where every wall reflects a version of a person that doesn't actually exist. For 30 years, you watched them polish those mirrors while they shattered everyone who dared to walk through the front door. You felt the weight of their chaos, the exhaustion of their games, and the deep, haunting fear that they might actually get away with it all. But time is the one thing a predator can never manipulate. I want you to take a deep breath and sit with me for a moment, because I see what you've been through. You aren't just watching a video, you are looking for the answer to a question that has kept you awake at 3 in the morning for a decade. Does it ever end? Is there a point where the universe finally demands a debt be paid for the decades of silence, tears, and stolen dignity they forced upon you? The answer is more chilling than you think. For 30 years, this person has operated like a master of a dark craft, convinced that they are the exception to every human rule. They've burned bridges and expected you to provide the water to put them out. They've played the victim while holding the smoking gun, and somehow, they've always managed to find a new audience for their lies. But the audience is getting smaller now, and the theater is starting to get very cold and very quiet. Most people think of karma as a sudden lightning bolt, a dramatic moment of public disgrace where the truth is finally shouted from the rooftops. But for the narcissist, the reality is far more psychological and far more permanent. It's a slow-motion collision with the vacuum they've created inside themselves. After 30 years of consuming others to fill a hole that has no bottom, they are finally starting to run out of people to eat. You've spent so much time wondering why they don't feel guilt, why they don't wake up and realize the pain they've caused. You've looked for a shred of humanity in eyes that seem to only reflect their own needs. I'm here to tell you that the victory you think they are enjoying is actually a prison sentence they are serving in real time. They aren't winning. They are just getting better at pretending the walls aren't closing in. This 30-year mark is a significant threshold because it's usually when the supply begins to dry up. The charm that once worked on strangers is now seen as a desperate performance. The children they controlled have grown up and moved away, or stayed and become shadows. The partners have either left or checked out emotionally. The narcissist is left standing in the center of a graveyard of relationships, still holding a shovel. There is a specific kind of terror that sets in for a person who has spent 3 decades avoiding their own soul. When you spend your life running away from your internal shame by projecting it onto everyone else, what happens when you finally run out of room to run? That is the question we are going to answer today. It's not about revenge. It's about the inevitable mechanical failure of a life built on a foundation of pure, unadulterated lies. You might see them on social media or at family gatherings, still wearing that smug smile, still acting like they are the king or queen of their own little world. But I need you to look closer. Look at the eyes. There is a frantic energy there now, a quiet panic that wasn't there 10 years ago. They are beginning to realize that the world has moved on, and they are still stuck in the same cycle of resentment and bitterness they created. This isn't just a story about a bad person getting what they deserve. It's a story about the physics of the human heart. You cannot spend 30 years sowing discord and expect to reap a harvest of peace. You cannot spend 30 years devaluing others and expect to feel valued when you are old and frail. The bill is coming due, and the currency they need to pay it, empathy, love, and genuine connection, is something they never saved. So, let's walk through the curtain. Let's look at what actually happens when the lights go down and the narcissist is left alone with the one person they have spent 30 years trying to escape, themselves. This is the truth they don't want you to know. This is the secret karma that is already unfolding, even if you can't see the bruises on the outside yet. It's time to stop looking for their downfall and realize they are already falling. To understand the karma of a 30-year narcissist, you have to understand the engine that drives them. It's not power, and it's not even really ego. It's a bottomless, terrifying void of shame. For 3 decades, they have used you and everyone else as a human shield to keep that shame from touching them. They've treated you like a mirror that is only allowed to show them a god, never a human, and certainly never a flawed one. Think of their psychology as a house where the lights are always on but nobody is actually home. They've spent 30 years decorating the front lawn to impress the neighbors while the plumbing is rotting and the roof is caving in. Every time they hurt you, it was a desperate attempt to feel something, anything, other than the hollow ringing in their own ears. They didn't target you because you were weak. They targeted you for your light. They operate on a purely transactional level, even with their own children or spouses. For 30 years, people were just objects to be used, moved, or discarded based on their current utility. But here is the psychological glitch. When you treat people like objects for that long, you eventually lose the ability to see yourself as a person. You become a collection of masks with no face underneath. That is the beginning of the true collapse. Imagine the mental energy required to maintain a 30-year lie. They have to remember every version of the story they told to every different person. They have to keep track of who is good and who is bad this week. It's a staggering amount of cognitive labor. As they age, the brain naturally loses its sharpness, and the masks start to slip. They start forgetting which lie goes where, and the cracks in the facade begin to show. Their internal world is a battlefield where they are both the general and the only soldier. They are constantly on the defensive, waiting for the moment someone realizes they aren't who they say they are. After 30 years, this hypervigilance turns into a toxic form of paranoia. They stop seeing friends and start seeing potential traitors. Everyone is a threat because everyone has the potential to see the truth of their emptiness. They have no emotional retirement fund. When you are kind and empathetic, you build up a reservoir of goodwill that carries you through your later years. People want to be around you because of how you made them feel. The narcissist, however, has spent 30 years withdrawing from everyone else's emotional bank account. By the time they hit the 3-decade mark, they are socially bankrupt, and no one is coming to bail them out. The metaphors they live by are always about conquest and survival, never about peace or growth. To them, life is a game of eat or be eaten. But after 30 years of eating, they realize they are still hungry. The supply they get from hurting you or manipulating a coworker only lasts for an hour, maybe a day. Then the hunger returns. It's a physiological addiction to chaos that eventually burns out the very nervous system it inhabits. They are trapped in a developmental loop. Psychologically, most narcissists are stuck at the emotional age of a toddler or a young teenager. Imagine a 60-year-old body inhabited by a 6-year-old who is throwing a tantrum because they didn't get their way. It's not just annoying, it's pathetic. And as the years go by, the gap between their actual age and their emotional age becomes a chasm that no amount of plastic surgery or money can fill. They truly believe that if they can just control the narrative for one more day, they will win. But winning, to a narcissist, is just avoiding the truth for another 24 hours. It's an exhausting way to live. They have no internal peace, no quiet moments of reflection, and no capacity for genuine joy. Their only high comes from the temporary feeling of superiority, which is a drug that requires higher and higher doses as time goes on. This is why they seem so much more bitter as they get older. The fun narcissist of their 20s becomes the vicious narcissist of their 50s. The charm has curdled into sarcasm and spite. They are realizing on some deep, subconscious level that the game is almost over and they haven't actually built anything real. They have a pile of trophies and a long list of enemies, but they don't have a single person who truly knows them. The turning point usually happens when the narcissist hits a wall they can't charm, bribe, or bully. Often, it's the body. Aging is the ultimate narcissistic injury. They've spent 30 years relying on their looks, their energy, or their physical presence to dominate a room. When those things start to fade, they lose their primary weapons. The mirror they loved so much starts to tell them a truth they've spent a lifetime trying to ignore. You start to see a shift in how they interact with the world. They become more frantic in their demands for attention. If they can't be loved, they will settle for being hated as long as they are being talked about. They start creating emergencies to force people back into their orbit. But the people they used to manipulate have grown wise. They see the hospital scare or the financial crisis for what it is, a desperate hook. This is the moment where the scarcity of supply becomes a physical reality. In their youth, there was always a new partner, a new friend group, or a new job to jump to. But after 30 years of burning through communities, their reputation starts to precede them. They become the person that people warn each other about. The world gets smaller, and the narcissist finds themselves confined to a very tiny, very lonely social circle. Watch what happens when their children set firm boundaries. This is often the most devastating blow to the narcissist's ego. For decades, they viewed their children as extensions of themselves, as props in their play. When those props stand up and say, "No more," the narcissist's entire reality fractures. They can't understand how someone they created could have a mind of their own. It feels like a betrayal of the highest order. The power dynamic flips. You used to be the one walking on eggshells, wondering if they were angry or if they were going to leave. Now, they are the ones looking at you with a mix of fear and resentment. They realize they need you more than you need them. They need your presence to validate their existence. Without an audience, they don't know who they are. They are a ghost haunting a house that is slowly being emptied of furniture. They begin to double down on the one thing they have left, the role of the martyr. If they can't be the hero, they will be the biggest victim in history. They will tell anyone who will listen, usually strangers or distant relatives, how ungrateful and cruel you are. They paint a picture of a life spent sacrificing for people who didn't appreciate them. It's a pathetic, transparent attempt to reclaim the moral high ground they never held. But here's the twist: nobody really believes them anymore. Even the flying monkeys and the enablers are getting tired. People have seen the pattern for 30 years. They've heard the same complaints, the same stories of betrayal, and the same excuses. The narcissist is like a broken record that everyone has learned to tune out. The dramatic turning point isn't an explosion, it's the sound of people quietly closing their doors. They become increasingly isolated, but they will tell you it's by choice. They claim that people are just disappointing, or that no one is on my level. This is the ultimate defense mechanism against the crushing reality that they have driven everyone away. They sit in their fortresses of solitude, surrounded by things they've bought, trying to convince themselves that they are the only sane person left in a world of fools. You might feel a pang of guilt during this stage. You might see their loneliness and think, maybe I should reach out. But remember, this loneliness is a direct consequence of their own choices. They chose power over love for 30 years. They chose manipulation over honesty. You cannot protect them from the harvest of the seeds they planted. To step back in now is to offer yourself as a sacrifice to a fire that will never be satisfied. The narcissist is now entering the twilight zone of their existence. The games don't work, the mask is transparent, and the energy is gone. They are looking for a way out, but they refuse to look inward. They are waiting for a miracle that will restore their glory, but the only thing waiting for them is the silence. And in that silence, for the first time in 30 years, they are forced to hear the sound of their own heartbeat. This is where the karma becomes terrifyingly tangible. It's called the Great Empty. After 30 years of torturing others, the narcissist isn't met with a vengeful God. They are met with a deafening, absolute nothingness. They look back at their life and see a trail of wreckage, but because they lack the capacity for remorse, they can't even use that wreckage to build a better future. They are stuck in a loop of perpetual resentment. The most honest consequence is the loss of their own mind. Because they have lived in a fantasy world for so long, they lose the ability to distinguish between what is real and what they've made up. Their cognitive dissonance becomes a permanent state of being. They truly believe their own lies, which makes them appear increasingly delusional to the outside world. It's a form of mental decay that starts from the soul and works its way out. Physically, the stress of being a narcissist takes a massive toll. Living in a constant state of fight or flight, always scanning for threats and plotting moves, floods the body with cortisol for decades. By the 30-year mark, this often manifests as chronic health issues that they use as their final weapon of manipulation. But even their illness becomes a performance, a way to guilt-trip people into providing one last drop of supply. They lose the ability to feel even the smallest sparks of genuine pleasure. Because their joy was always tied to devaluing others or winning a competition, they don't know how to enjoy a sunset, a quiet meal, or a simple conversation. Their nervous system is fried from 30 years of high-stakes drama. Everything feels boring or beneath them unless it involves conflict or ego inflation. They are literally bored to death. The terrifying karma, is that they become a parody of themselves. Every trait they used to hide or use strategically now becomes their entire personality. If they were slightly stingy, they become a miser. If they were slightly arrogant, they become a megalomaniac. Without the filter of social awareness, their true, ugly nature is on full display 24/7. They become the personification of the very things they used to mock in others. Think about the holidays, the birthdays, and the milestones. For 30 years, they ruined these moments for you. Now they sit through them, if they are invited at all, as a ghost at the feast. They see the genuine laughter between others and they feel a spike of pure venom because they can't join in. They don't know the language of connection. They are like a person standing outside in the snow, watching a warm family dinner through a window. They are haunted by the ones who got away. In their quiet moments, they remember the people who were truly good to them, the ones they destroyed just because they could. They don't miss the person, they miss the high-quality supply that person provided. They realize, too late, that they traded a diamond for a handful of gravel, and they will never get that diamond back. That regret, though selfish, is a bitter pill they swallow every day. The house they live in starts to reflect their internal state. Whether it's a mansion or a shack, there is a sense of stagnation. Things break and aren't fixed. Dust settles on the trophies of their past wins. There is a smell of old air and forgotten things. A narcissist's home after 30 years of abuse often feels like a museum of a war that ended a long time ago, but the soldier refuses to believe the peace treaty was signed. They become obsessed with their legacy, but they have none. They try to write their own history, telling stories of their greatness to anyone who will listen, but there are no witnesses to back them up. Their life story is a book with no supporting characters, only a protagonist who is increasingly unlikable. The terror is the realization that when they die, the primary emotion felt by those who knew them will be a profound sense of relief. This is the final stage of the collapse, the realization that they didn't actually matter. For 30 years, they thought they were the sun and everyone else was a planet. Now they see that life goes on perfectly fine, better, even, without their input. The world is indifferent to their rage and their tears. They are just a person who was mean for a long time, and now they are just a person who is alone. That is the ultimate karma. If you are still here, I want you to look at me, not with your eyes, but with your heart. You've been through a war that had no front lines and no clear uniform. You've been gaslit, devalued, and discarded by someone you once trusted. You've spent years waiting for the universe to balance the scales. But the most important part of this journey isn't their collapse, it's your awakening. Their karma is theirs, your life is yours. You need to realize that you were never the problem. You were just the mirror they used to try and see something beautiful in themselves. When they couldn't find it, they tried to break the mirror. But you aren't broken, you are just scattered. And every piece of you is still capable of reflecting the light. The 30 years of torture they put you through was a testament to your strength, not your weakness. You survived the unsurvivable. The healing starts when you stop looking at the narcissist's life for signs of justice. Whether they are miserable in a mansion or lonely in a basement doesn't actually change the fact that you are free. Every minute you spend wondering if they are suffering is another minute of your life you are giving to them for free. You've given them enough. It's time to take your curiosity and turn it inward, toward your own beautiful, aching soul. There is a profound peace that comes from realizing that you don't have to be the one to punish them. The laws of psychology and time are already doing the work for you. You don't have to scream the truth from the rooftops because the truth is written in the narcissist's own empty eyes. You can lay down your sword. You can stop being the guard at the prison of your memories. The gates are open, and you are allowed to walk away. I want you to imagine your life 30 years from now. If you stay tethered to their ghost, you will be just as bitter as they are. But if you let go, you can build a life that is defined by what you love, not by what you survived. You can choose to be the person who is kind because they know what cruelty feels like. You can be the person who is authentic because they know how much a lie can hurt. You can turn your lead into gold. The terrifying karma of the narcissist is a life without love. The beautiful reward of the survivor is a life where love is finally possible. Because you have seen the darkest parts of the human ego, You are now uniquely qualified to appreciate the simplest acts of grace. A sincere apology, a quiet morning, a friend who listens, these things are now your treasures. You have earned a depth of character they will never understand. Do not let your heart turn to stone to match theirs. They would like nothing more than to know they changed you, that they made you as cold and suspicious as they are. The ultimate win is to remain soft in a world that tried to make you hard. To keep loving, to keep trusting, with wisdom this time, and to keep believing that you deserve a life of peace. Your joy is the one thing they can't stand, so go and find it. For everyone who is still in the middle of it or who just got out, it gets better. The fog clears. The shaking stops. The voice in your head that sounds like them starts to fade until it's just a whisper you can ignore. You are rediscovering who you were before they told you who you were supposed to be. That person is still there, waiting for you. They've been waiting for 30 years, and they are so happy to see you. This script, this story, this moment, it's a bridge. On one side is the wreckage of their 30-year campaign of terror. On the other side is a wide-open field where the sun is finally coming up. You don't have to look back. You don't have to check the rearview mirror to see if they are chasing you. They can't run anymore. They are stuck in the mud of their own making. You, however, have wings you haven't even used yet. The narcissist's greatest fear was always that they would be forgotten. And in the end, that is exactly what happens. They become a shadow, a footnote, a cautionary tale that no one tells anymore. But you? You are a living, breathing testament to the resilience of the human spirit. You are the light that survived the dark. Remember this. The most terrifying karma for a narcissist is watching you thrive without ever needing to look back at them.